So this week we're doing Drive by Daniel Pink. Terry, what'd you think about it?
Motivation book.
Yeah.
Right? You're like the worldwide leader in motivation. So this book must have been incredible for you. I loved it. I loved reliving my corporate life. You know, what things we put in place.
Yeah.
What things science is telling us at work versus what we did, most of which was not in alignment with this idea.
Right.
You know, it wasn't if anything, it was actually encouraging the wrong behaviors. You know, Drive is a book about, what motivates us, which I love.
Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't want to be motivated?
And it's pretty cool too, because to your point, the whole idea is the science behind motivation. Like motivation can be so fluffy, depending on where you find it.
Right.
And so I really liked that component of it. And, basically, to give a 30-second synopsis, Daniel talks about 3 different kinds of motivation. So 1.0, which is basically we're motivated by survival. Right? And that we're going to kind of discard because he really only talks about comparing and contrast the next 2.
Like survival being food,
shelter, water, reproduction.
Yeah.
That animal drive.
Biological.
And then so number 2 is sort of the classic carrot and stick, right? Reward / consequence. It's getting punished for doing something wrong, getting a bonus at work for doing something right.
Right. If you do this, you'll get that.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
That was how I ran my company for 20 years.
So this must have been.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're told to do. You want good performance, you got to pay. If you have bad performance, you got to pay and punish.
Seems simple.
Count the nickels, count the dimes, count the minutes. But as it looks, it was not the right way to get the most out of somebody.
Yeah. That's what was so because it's intuitive. Like it makes sense. And so the science keeps saying, no. It advocates for number 3, which is the intrinsic component. Valuing more of the state of flow, which Terry will talk about in a little bit. But the idea that people are incentivized by more than money. They want to be immersed in something. They want to be purposeful. And that really is sort of an underlying human motivator.
How do you manage purpose? If you're a company, it's like, how do you embed purpose into your mission? I mean, I guess there's books that we've done before that talk about, creating why, creating even the meaning of life, the one we did, Man's Search for Meaning. But that word intrinsic is an interesting word I learned many years ago in a business valuation course. And if you look it up, it's not really real. It's nothing that you can pick up and walk around. Right. It's certainly not in accounting. You can't count it. You can't look it up in a book and say what something's worth. An intrinsic value, it was called. An easy example would be your grandmother's great grandmother's family heirloom ring. Could be technically worth $300, but you wouldn't take $300,000 for it because it's your grandmother's. Your mother wouldn't, right? Yeah, they kept going down. That thing is intrinsic value is off the chart. And another example would be a business that has a key employee attached to it. The owner is the key employee. They know the clients really well. They know them better than anyone. And maybe because they know them so well and there's a relationship there, the company's worth more. The intrinsic value of that company is worth more than the real estate and the sales. That's called intrinsic value. It's not something you touch. So in Motivation 3.0, intrinsic value is that there's more to this job than the external factors or the extrinsic, which is what's out there versus what's in there.
And you can see why it's so hard to implement into the workplace because you can't quantify it.
Right.
It's really hard to manage something that is not directly quantifiable.
And these are things you've been writing about for the last 5 years and putting videos out about meaning and purpose and adversity and gaining strength through discomfort. All these things are the
real deal.
It's kind of the big idea in the book is there's more to life than just doing a job and getting paid. Trading units of time for units of dollars. There's more to life in this new operating system. And if you can capture that as a business owner, you can hit gold.
And to take it a step further, there's even evidence that the old way disincentivizes.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
That offering money and rewards and, structuring things the way we've used to, dangling the carrot, does the opposite of what we think it's doing.
Oh, dude, I had a bonus structure where I was for years that I had to grow the company every year to receive a new bonus. Like you could never not grow. Mm-hmm. And so if you were flat over the prior year, you'd get no bonus. Like, and this is the way it was for years, and lots of companies are like this. So in the beginning of the year or the end of the year you're in, the company will say, "Oh, you need to hit this number to get a bonus."
Right.
So if I had 100 people, I take my bonus basically and I divide it by 100 and say, "Hey, here's your new goal." Like it'd be my goal, not their goal.
Right.
And that's really dangerous, especially because I could have done this. I can attach bonuses, some of my bonus to their bonus. So what it does, and I know this, it incents unethical behavior. It incents higher levels of risk because you end up paying for that either way. That's a danger of goals based on intrinsic rewards. All right, which I think is like, as soon as I heard it, I was like, wow, like I live that.
That's amazing. Yeah, he talks about that, right? The toxicity that it creates when people aren't doing things for the love of doing them or to any extent enjoying them, but to hit a number. It's like people are incentivized to, the end justifies the means.
You can't pay people after a certain level to make them happier anyway, right? We've seen studies that I think it's 75 grand is like when happiness stops improving with money and it actually starts going down. So when you think you can start to say, if then, if you do this, I'll give you this, it'll start having a diminishing effect. And now the evidence is pointing to it's actually not good. It's a disincentive. And businesses are still behaving like that. Ones that I interact with, I see all the time. Like they're incenting people to do things for the company rather than for their own goal or their own attachment to the why in the company.
Yeah.
Which I think is pretty cool.
What about on a personal level, Steve?
What do you think, Steve?
What's up, guys?
Hey, quiet over there, man.
Fall asleep, did you?
The main thing I was going to say was that I really love the intrinsic, how it says that it opens you up to all these different things. Right. But the detriments were a really eye-opening thing as well, how it can narrow your focus so much that you have the dangling carrot and that's all you're trying to go for. And when he talks about right brain activities, it can narrow your focus so much that you don't even get to the solution or it slows you down from the solution. Like they talked about that candle experiment.
Yeah.
It's a really good one.
Tell me about that. Yeah. Well, it's a really good point. I mean, basically, and I mentioned there's a lot of experimentation in here, a lot of data to pull from. One of the examples is, there's two groups of people and, they're brought into a room. And on this room, there's a table, there's a candle, there's a box of tacks, right? And so the idea is they have to... What is it? Light the candle.
I forget what they actually have to do. They have to light the candle.
They have to have light the candle without the wax dripping onto the table. So the box, you got the box, the tacks in the box, and a candle on top of the box. It says you got to light the candle and not have the wax drip onto the table.
That's what it was?
Yeah. And they weren't they paying a group? They were paying one group, and then one group was being paid to solve the problem. The other group was just asked to solve the problem just as a puzzle.
Right.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah, and the group this is the interesting part, the group that was not paid did it quicker than the group that was paid. Because to Steve's point, it's hard to focus, right? And it's a heuristic thing.
Right.
It's not algorithmic. You have to think outside the box. Like the answer is actually to dump the tacks out of the box, put the candle in the box, and tack the box to the wall.
Right.
So it's really out there. Now, the other piece, and we talked about this a little bit too, is when they had them come back in a few weeks and do the same experiment. And, this time the tacks were already outside of the box. So it looks like step 1, 2, like there wasn't much heuristic thinking. It was pretty algorithmic. It was pretty obvious. The people that were paid did it faster. And I guess that's an obvious thing. It was simple and it was, procedural and they were incentivized.
It's more fun.
Yeah.
I mean, do you remember the Rubik's Cube a little bit?
Yeah.
Oh, you do? Yeah. I mean, I remember there was some people that could figure it out. They can just play with it a little bit and get it. And they figure it out, that their brains would work on it. And they work on it for hours. That's a heuristic. There's no pattern. But then they released, or someone figured out the algorithm The first time I heard the word. What's the algorithm? I said, I don't know. It's a set of steps, it's a path.
Right.
And people can follow the path. In the old world, Motivation 2.0, if you pay them to do it, they'll follow the path. But it becomes boring. Imagine doing that 25 times. You would throw the Rubik's Cube in the garbage. You wouldn't even use it.
Right.
Like the heuristic is, it's like you can figure it out. And Motivation 3.0 is, you got to find out the heuristic. You got to create what's called play. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi wrote a book called Flow. I love the book because it's also, he studies anxiety and depression and addiction. And, an alternative to medicating somebody is, trying to figure out what they do that it gives them flow. Flow is what's called an autotelic goal, task. Like the goal is within the reward is within the task, like
right.
mountain climbing. Like it's very simple. The feedback's immediate. It's a very easily well-known, difficult, but not too easy problem.
Right.
Call it Goldilocks, not too hot, not too cold. Well, flow is a big, here it comes up again with, this book, how can you create flow vis-a-vis play in a business, or in life? If you can figure out how to make money doing something that time doesn't pass, your hours are no longer for sale.
Yeah. Just sort of a lot of what?
Well, I was thinking about it, when you do something, like you like to run. That was what we said your flow is, right? Before. In our conversation, I said, imagine if you like to run and then flow, it requires concentration. Time kind of goes by, hours at all. You don't notice. And then you get the reward, the autotelic reward, and you get the satisfaction. But imagine if you can figure out how to get paid to run.
Right.
Like there's some people that get paid to do what they love, and they have flow.
Yeah. I mean, and to your point, like up to a certain amount, it matters.
Mm-hmm.
But then you just want to, once you're secure, to your point, the objective is the task. So there's not going to be any unethical behavior or anything like that when you're doing it for the sake of doing it. So it's like, that's the whole idea about incentive.
Google, we talking about Google, they gave you a day off, basically a week. I don't know how they did it, but they basically had a full day, 20% of
That was Google talking. That's what happened. You said Google.
Oh, God, it's Google. We got... You don't unplug that foolish thing. It's our...
It's the router. I'll just leave it.
No worries. Yeah, leave it. But you get a day off to go do whatever you want. Like you can go figure something out. And then, what engineers were doing was remarkable. They were going off working on problems that they wouldn't be paid to solve, and they came up with all these great products.
Yeah.
Gmail, Google News are all products of that free time, to go off and figure something out. Go be in flow. I mean, and that's what the engineers would do. And that will work for anybody. If you go work on a problem that you're interested in solving for the company, we'll pay you. Come back with your ideas.
Right. Yeah,
kind of a cool way.
It's the beauty of it, right? Can't quantify it, but these people are in their happy state. They're creating. They're being innovative. They're pushing boundaries. They're not adhering to guidelines.
Right, and they're controlling their own time. Well, that's very important to people.
Yeah.
Because he talks about the elements on how to create a drive environment, a drive 3.0 environment, and it comes down to three things that I think are genius. The simplicity of this book are these three things: autonomy, be autonomous, and to strive for but never get mastery, but have a mindset of that mastery is something to strive for, and then of course purpose. When you wake up in the morning, he says, what gets you up in the morning? One question to ask yourself, and the other one is, what keeps you up at night?
And if businesses can focus on the even so, autonomy, right, being the first one, that sense of independence.
Right.
Zappos did that with call centers.
Yeah, I know. I love that.
Right? They X'd out the 2.0 component, and they wanted to give people the freedom to make their own decisions and operate in a way that allowed them to at least bring some individuality in what they're doing, dive into it. And so they eliminated it, and they let call center workers work from home, which is like unheard of.
Yeah. And they said just figure out to make the customer happy. That was your guide. No script. Because the scripts is a very, very algorithmic task that they'd pay for.
Right.
That now, of course, you can go overseas. You very rarely ever get an American call center. you're always going to get something overseas in a country that speaks almost our language, but that pays a lot less. And then they said, just heuristics, just figure it out, make the customer happy. And they gave them tons of freedom. And, Zappos, I mean, it's always brought up if someone's a Zappos customer. I heard someone talking about it in the pool. They were returning a shoe that didn't fit right. Like he wore it for a week and he's telling the whole story. I'm sitting there listening. The guy's like, yeah, I wore it for a week. I put it back in the box. The person said, send it back. They're still doing it. This is 3 days ago.
There must be a lot of case study because Simon Sinek mentions their CEO in Start With Why and how, he even gives people tours of his house, like the headquarters.
Right.
Like really sticks to, the MO of the company.
Yeah, he lives it.
So it was cool to see it kind of filter down like that.
These books connect so many different times. If you're working with autonomy, I mean, you're going to see it a lot now because everybody's home. And some companies were forced to do remote workers. And some companies, I know I'm seeing this a lot, are finding out, boy, we didn't miss a beat. And now the employees are home, working from home, getting their work done. They're getting the results because he visits on a concept called the ROW, results only work environment. Just get the job done. I don't care when you do it. I don't care where you do it, what you wear. Just get the job done.
Right.
And you have control over your time. You have control over your team. You have control over the technique you use. These are the things he talks about.
It was Best Buy, right? The first implemented that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you're going to see this happen. Like the world's going to change after this 8-week period or 10-week, however long it is, because people are finding out. Companies are now getting the data. Like remote working can work in some places very well. Now you got to figure out how to blend in the right incentives and not overmanage that because you'll ruin everything that it's created. Because what's interesting, for about a month, I've seen a couple companies that from afar, and I was like, oh, they're just kind of letting you figure it out because they had no protocol for training someone to be remote.
Right.
I mean, they were having a hard time getting people on the camera. As I was doing coaching calls, and people weren't even turning their cameras on. Now they're all on the camera. They're engaged. They're comfortable talking. Like the whole world's been trained. It's awesome, kind of a parallel point.
Yeah, it might be an accidental miracle, right? Because just the fact that people are working from home, it does create, in a sense, some autonomy.
Totally.
And as long as they're not being micromanaged, it could... I don't know. I mean, you've heard that study all over the place. When employees work from home, productivity actually goes up.
Right.
And
you think they're at the golf course, but they're really working. They knocked out their work early in the morning. They might have knocked it out at midnight. They might have knocked it out. I mean, you have odd hours when you work.
Yeah.
You don't work a 9 to 5.
Yeah, but I do. That's very true. It's like, when they stick you to a schedule, it's like it doesn't work with your body. You're not supposed to sit so long and different things like that. It just doesn't, especially for me, it just doesn't work.
That's interesting, yeah. It's a physical mismatch.
That's why I come home and Steve's doing workshops.
You actually took a nap today, which I was so impressed with you.
I had to.
Yeah, he came in a little groggy. He says, I'm going to take a nap. But it's cool that you could do that. You literally couldn't do that if you're at work. Like, hey, I'm going to go take a nap in the conference room. Like, they're like, yeah, I don't think so. If you're at home and you're tired, like the body, just to speak to naps, you need to sleep. We're the only mammals in the world that force ourselves to stay up. You're tired, go to bed. That's a whole interesting kind of transformation that could occur. That Daniel wrote this book years too early. Like right now, I think it might wake back up. This book's a little bit 10 years old, I think, right?
I'm not sure. I don't know how old it is. He mentions the early 2000s a few times.
Yeah, it's been around a little bit. I love it. I'm really happy with 2009.
Mention the
like
daycare. The daycare example was really good.
Yeah. So the daycare example, and it's another example of autonomy. Like there's so many things in this book. How you think them and you're aware of them to some extent, but once someone points it out and says that's what it is, you realize it, and it actually helps you understand where to take it next.
Yeah.
But no, Steve, that was a great example. So the daycare example is talking about the difference between 2.0 and 3.0. Mm-hmm. And basically there's a daycare and parents usually come after work, so they're coming around 4, and the people who are on the daycare are pissed that the parents are late. So they're like, look, if you come after 4:10 p.m., we're going to fine you X amount, and we're going to just slap it on the monthly bill. And, like we were talking about, it does the inverse of what they thought it was going to do, right? the parents came later because they didn't care about the money, right? The reason that they rushed over from work, and maybe they got there a little bit late, but they got there as soon as they could, was because the intrinsic value of the relationship between the people that run the daycare and the parents. And so once they realized that was torched and that meant nothing, they're like, well, who cares, right? I don't care about a few extra bucks. The incentive was destroyed.
It worked the wrong way.
Yeah, and that keeps like in the book, in the corporate environment, with bonuses, with all these things, they don't do what people think it will.
Let me give you. I just thought of this. I didn't think of this when I was reading the book. I thought about it when you were telling me the story about the daycare. Like, we were having a problem going from what business casual is. We were a suit and jacket, suit and tie company. You wore a suit, a sports coat if you wanted to, but always a necktie. And we were transitioning out of that in the early 2000s. Like, it was going, smart business casual. So we had people that brought business casual to a very, very all new low. Like, they wouldn't wear a tie, or they'd tie it properly, or they'd wear sneakers, and we'd have to we continually put in like fines. And pretty soon people would walk in poorly dressed, knowingly violating the fine, and would just throw $10 in the jar. Because we had a jar from it was a big pile of money. People were just like, screw it, I'll just dress like crap and I'll just pay. Like, we had to get rid of that, obviously. But that's a kind of another example. They turned it into, instead of saying like, hey, you're bringing the company down, you don't look, someone has a client here and you don't look good. That was the reason we had it, not because they could wear tennis shoes and shorts,
right,
and pay $20, whatever it was.
I wonder what the actual numbers would be if you let, like, say everyone comes in sweatpants, right, but they're doing their own thing, like what that would be versus the opposite. If everyone comes in a suit and tie, like, what are you gaining versus what are you losing? And I don't think it's possible.
Well, no one's ever done the experiment, but it's a culture, and then the culture is the sum average of its participants. So if you want to put a professional foot forward, and people are running around in shorts and sweatpants, and half of them are dressed, like someone who's on stage, it's difficult. They got to kind of look the same. I guess my point is, a lot of people moved out of the office and went and did their own things, and they had their own offices. I'd visit them. They'd have whatever on they wanted. Yeah. They were paying for it. I didn't care.
Right.
An extreme example I had an experience of was I visited the headquarters of Facebook. My friend had a nephew, I think, that worked there. So it's really hard to get like a tour, right? They're like really, really strict. But you walk around that place. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, or have I told you this story?
No. And heard of what? I missed the beginning.
I took a tour of Facebook, like the actual headquarters where people work in San Francisco or near it. And we traveled to San Francisco. I think it was like an hour south. I forget. But the point is, the people working there were just in whatever clothes they wanted, but they had at like a landing area for every corporate job, they have like a kitchen, usually in the fridge. They had like fully stocked snacks, as much as you can eat, full like vending machines, completely free for the employees. Yeah. And they had a bunch of different things. They even had like a barber. This is all included, and it was they had little places like to play music. They had an arcade, just to name a few. They had tons of things, woodworking, all these different things you could use it. I swear, awesome. At anything you could use. And I was like,
anything but work, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I was thinking, like, I would never leave this place. They got food, they got everything. Why would you? I mean, so and that's what happens is people don't leave. They spend so much time there. They feel so like they've gotten so much that they give back. And it was just I've never experienced anything like that. So that's like a really extreme example.
That's awesome. Yeah. I've heard rumors about that.
It was crazy. Yeah. Everyone's going crazy.
That's cool. It's autonomy. Let's switch gears to mastery, the second element. Because flow comes from mastery. You can master what. Of course, you can spend enough time on something, because time isn't really a factor when you love it. Like then you're looking at mastery, and the distinction between doing something and then trying to attain mastery was an interesting thing that he pointed out. Because like if you went to play tennis every day with the same people, you might like it, you might have flow, but you're not necessarily going to have mastery.
Yeah.
Because you haven't been working on your game,
right,
so to speak. So
mastery includes those components that are not flow. That's what makes it so unique.
Right.
The Michael Phelpses, the Tiger Woods of the world.
Right.
There are certainly moments where they're going into flow. In fact, he kind of sets flow up as the first step or the door that you open.
Right.
So like when you're in flow and you love something, That's a sign that maybe you want to embrace mastery, start that journey. But it's a process, and it's not all bliss. There are peaks and there's valleys, and mastery is going through the difficult times,
Right.
regardless.
Like your run yesterday.
Yeah, that was
it
brutal.
yesterday?
Yes.
Mastery requires some form of discomfort, right? That's your big idea in your life, right?
Yesterday was hell on earth.
Yeah, I know.
It was.
You got stuck somewhere. I was like, where the hell did you go?
I wanted to go on a 15-miler, and it was, I swear to you, it was cloudy, and I thought it was going to rain, and I didn't bring a lot of water, and I hadn't run that long in a long time, and I was like 10 miles in, and I was dizzy and out of water, and there were no clouds in the sky. It was like the hottest day ever, and I'm like, oh my God, I have to walk. I haven't had to walk, and so it was a bloodbath.
A walk of shame.
Yeah. Well, I got to read most of the book or listen to, you know what I mean? And then I finished the rest today,
Right.
but
A little pain. You don't grow if you don't pain. You don't go into pain.
I'm going to get it tomorrow. I'm going after
Same
it.
one.
Hydrate tonight.
Yeah.
That's be my advice.
As I sip here drinking coffee.
Steve the high. That's like the word that we learned that I love. I think I'll use it my whole life is asymptote.
Nailed it.
Right?
just because it's fun to say.
No, I was I didn't pronounce it right the first time Steve corrected me. It's a line that goes towards a goal but never hits it. Like if the goal is complete perfection, a 10, there's no such thing as a 10 with an asymptote, but kind of goes up, and then when you get close, it kind of parallels and always goes up but never gets there. Like Woods will never shoot. Golf's an interesting example
Always
because
another
you
level.
can't. Yeah, you can't. You can always score lower because you can't score. I guess the lowest score in golf's an 18. No one's ever shot it. Right. A hole in one in 18 holes. So golf is one of those games. Like actually, you can't shoot an 18 because some ball physically can't go far enough. So I don't know what the lowest score is, but that I guess would be mastery, which is impossible.
We
the
should
lowest.
do a putt sometime.
Yeah, the lowest score in putt-putt is 18.
That'd be fun.
But when you get there, because he mentioned Wood specifically in the book, he's still trying to get better, even though age has kind of snuck up on him. The asymptote, it has to be embedded in mastery.
Yeah.
Like if you want to be the best, you should have a mindset. Whether you're a speaker, a business owner, you're performing, you want to really always get better at your unique skills.
Yeah. There's always another level. That's sort of
Collins talks about good to great, right? Best in the world,
yeah.
right? The hedgehog. What are you the best in the world at?
In mastery, what I really liked what he said, why would you chase it if you know you can never achieve it? And he says the joy is in the pursuit. And I love that because that's what I do when I jump.
Yeah, that's right. The mindset. Remember we chatted about the two mindsets of mastery, incremental and entity? Like there's two schools of thought on learning and ability. That one, it's an entity, like it is what it is. That's what you were given, live with it, the entity theory. And the other one is incremental, meaning anything can be improved upon.
Yeah. And this is one of the few parts in the book where he says entity is pretty much wrong.
Totally. I don't believe it.
Anything can be improved upon.
I doubt anybody listening would.
Well, he says height. He gives the example of height. If you wanted to change your height, you can't change your height. But that's like what he was saying. Some people might believe that about intelligence, but it's kind of...
Right. There is technically a low score in golf, but I doubt anyone would say the lowest score in golf has existed. Interesting. I read about Unabomber. Mm-hmm. You know why he bombed people? Remember the guy, Ted Kaczynski? He was sending packages that were bombs, and he was killing people that were tied to technology. Mm-hmm. He believed that nothing's going to change in all the great technology. No, he believed people needed to live a purposeful life. That was his first belief in his manifesto. Then he believed that all the great technology's already been invented, so he started trying to kill the people that invented it. He was wrong about the second one. Like, there's always room. He was an entity guy. That was all the great ideas have been invented. And there's so many things since that guy. That was in the 90s. I don't know. You probably don't remember. You're the Unabomber. You ever hear of the Unabomber?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
That's the Oklahoma City bomber, right?
No, Oklahoma City was a different guy. The Unabomber, they found him. He wrote this manifesto. So for years, he was sending these packages and blowing up executives and technology people. He killed a lot of people. And he wrote this crazy manifesto that said that people need a purpose and why bother even trying. All the technology already exists. All the great inventions are already done. This was in the 90s.
How did you get caught?
His brother turned him in. His brother recognized his ranting because they had one picture of him and he was in a like a hoodie with sunglasses, but his brother turned him in and they found him in the middle of, I think he was in like Wyoming in a hut. They got him. The FBI got him.
Wow.
But he was an entity guy versus incremental, like anything can be improved upon for the most part. Get a little bit better every day.
Agreed.
The dominoes.
No finish lines, man.
Oh,
So
dominoes.
the third one is purpose, right? Moving right
Purpose.
along the.
Oh, that's your wheelhouse.
Yeah, man. Purpose is the reason you get up,
Yeah.
and everything sort of falls under that bucket,
Yeah.
And if you have a sense of purpose and you're driven, again, I feel like there's a lot of tie-in, and we were talking about this earlier, to the mastery component. It's like purpose is what allows you to get through the lows.
Right.
Because you're incentivized, and so I think it's really tied hand in hand with mastery.
Yeah, like Wikipedia is an example. He brought it right almost instantly because Microsoft had Encarta, which was a Microsoft-sponsored paid encyclopedia. For those of you that are over 40, the encyclopedia used to be this giant library of books, like dozens of books that made up the encyclopedia. So Encarta was in Microsoft, I think, 95. Encarta was they paid the best writers in the world to write up an encyclopedia. And concurrently, Wikipedia started with what he called open source, people that just wrote because they felt like writing. And, of course, Encarta's long gone. And Wikipedia is the most well-known, most highly used encyclopedia in the world. Made out of thin air, made open source. Like there's no author. It's like everybody.
Right.
It's purpose. They like, I want to contribute.
Point being that the intrinsic component carried the day.
Correct.
Right, as opposed to the well-funded, Microsoft-backed encyclopedia.
Yeah. They're out of business now.
Yeah.
What was that famous band? I'm sure there's a bunch of them that you mentioned when we were talking about this book. That their best album, when they stopped thinking about what it was for, the goal, they had their best-selling album. Do you remember that? They started they got
Is that in the book?
creative. No, it wasn't in the book. We were just chatting about it.
They had the best album when they stopped thinking about
When
it.
they said they're just going to do it for them, just have fun with it. Do you don't remember that?
Oh, this is going to drive me crazy.
Yeah. I'll look
Yeah.
it up. But there's been a lot of examples of that where people, can't think of any, but
Right.
people, especially artists, they go to do something and they do it out of the love of it. They're like, I'm stop doing it, or they don't think about who they're making it
Yeah.
for or anything like that. And it turns out to be their best work because they,
Bands, you hear a lot about that because I watch Howard Stern. He has bands on. He had the guy from, I forget is it Coldplay, Viva La Viva?
Yeah.
Yeah, Viva La Viva. He talks about that song. He saw the painting and saw the title, and it was in his head. And one day he just kind of played, and then he brought it to the band. They kind of kicked it around, and boom,
Yeah.
they were in flow for sure.
When you have the expectation of pleasing someone else, the whole point of the art sort of falls through the cracks, right? It's supposed to be like this limitless self-expression, like go create something. But if you have that thought in your head while you're doing it for someone, there's actually a study in the book with people in art school.
I was thinking about that with purpose because I know in your own world, if you want to comment, you have an artistic expression that you put out and people connect to it and love it. And then invariably people say, wow, do that for me.
Yeah.
So they'll pay you, right? That's part of the way you earn your living.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many dynamics to go. I mean, I certainly don't enjoy it as much, but it's like it becomes different because I can't do what I think is right. I'm trying to meet a set of criteria for
Right.
certain people, and they want changes, and they want and that's just the client.
Yeah, it's their lens on their own
Right, right.
own message.
So it's a totally different lens of looking at work.
Well, they're hiring you because they can't do it.
Right.
And then when they see something, I've done this too. It's like, oh wow, I'd love one of those for my own business or my own message. And the study that was in the book said that when you pay an artist to give you artistic expression, and you may get something that's technically good, and you may not even know the difference. But what was interesting is when they put it up against the artist, the connoisseur of art, and they said that while technically perfect, the paid art lacks the creativity and expression that the artist's own work. And there was an exception, by the way, which I loved. It was just snuck in there. It's called enabled, unless it enabled the artist to do something that they love. So if the money gave them time to pursue their own passion and purpose.
If it checked off a box for them.
Yeah.
And then freed them to. So it's almost like it goes right back to what we were saying originally. You hit that, whatever it is, probably higher with inflation, I don't know, but the 75 mark,
Right.
you're liberated. So a truly intrinsic person then doesn't have to think about money. They can think about the things that they care about and ultimately turn out innovation and things that are, groundbreaking, things that will improve things.
Yeah. See it in athletes sometimes, right? They just check out.
Make their money and leave.
Who's the running back? Barry Sanders. I don't know why he left
The Lions
football.
wouldn't trade him.
Is that why?
I think
but
so.
I think at some level, if it gave him flow, he would have played football again.
Yeah.
And then was it Megatron, Calvin Johnson? He just left, right? He was, there's got to be a reason that they did it to enable a lifestyle. Once that was enabled and not an issue, they didn't do the. If they had flow, you got to think like Tiger could easily retire, but he's still competing and he's still practicing like a lot, and that's kind of a impressive.
About Mike Tyson.
Oh my God, Mike Tyson! Did you see the transformation that guy just put on?
Yeah.
From September to now, he looks
He's a
amazing.
beast.
He's an absolute beast. That was good. I was talking to my doctor today. I went to the doctor's for a checkup, and the guy's like raving about Mike Tyson. I said, "Man, I just saw that video, and my jaw dropped. He looks fantastic.
You think he's doing it for extrinsic or intrinsic?
He's doing it because he's got purpose. He's prideful in the way he looks. I mean, he's proud of what he's done in the world.
Yeah.
Someone probably woke him up. I'm sure something woke him up. Yeah, someone probably woke him up.
Maybe financial troubles. I don't know.
That could be.
Well,
but I mean, boxing enabled him to do what? I don't know. Whether or not maybe he's got purpose. He's done some cool things in the last few years. I mean, he's a troubled guy in some regard, but his past. But why not?
Yeah.
Recreate himself.
That's one of the questions that I'm excited to ask. Daniel Pink this week or tomorrow.
Wednesday. Yeah.
Wednesday.
Yeah, I can't
we
wait.
interview him
I'm
is
nodding.
The idea of Steve's like yeah. The idea of in the beginning when he's talking about people doing things for intrinsic reasons, the open source stuff.
Right.
I'd be curious to get proof of a lack of externality. Like a lot of people do things for free because they see the bigger picture and they see the credibility and what that'll bring down the road.
Right.
So it'd be interesting to hear how he parses that out.
I'd like to know what type of engagement he's getting on this book, because he's got a new book coming out. We're going to talk to him a little bit about that too. But this thing should be waking back up, in my opinion, the way in this little area of unique time in history when people are looking, like, particularly when you look your own mortality in the eye, and you say, "Wow, people are dying." Survival resources are thin. Remember, it was a little scary going to the store and seeing the lines.
Right.
What if the economy dies? What if all this stuff happens all at once? What are you going to do with your life?
Yeah.
Doing motivation 2.0 type of work doesn't sound so fun anymore.
Well, it's going away. Not to mention it's not fun.
True.
The economy is 70% heuristic now.
Yep. Yeah.
That's a big deal.
Algorithms. We did this in the 2014 Future of Employment Study says 7 out of 10, if not 8 out of 10 jobs will be replaced by a computer algorithm that does it better. Like computers can do this work. So there's a lot of jobs that are being replaced that will be replaced that aren't yet, that will be. So recreating yourself could be definitely a viable option. And when you do, consider flow, what you love. And the last thing I loved is he is Sagmeister. Did you remember that he says, take a Sagmeister?
No.
The graphic artist guy is named Stefan Sagmeister. He's got his name is a move. And he closes his graphic shop down every 7 years. Instead of saving fully for retirement, he takes 1/7 of that and puts it towards his own current enjoyment. Every 7 years, he takes a full year off, closes his business, and he goes on a walkabout. He travels and does whatever he wants to do, and he calls it taking a Sagmeister.
And then comes back. I do remember that.
Yeah, he
Goes on
comes
the
back.
vacation,
Yeah.
comes back. You
be kinda
sacrifice
cool.
a little bit up front, but you come back recharged and ready to rock and roll. Like he has his most profitable, right? His most profitable times immediately after the trip.
Totally, yeah, because he's got all these new ideas, totally energized.
Yeah.
That's an interesting concept. Like, imagine the retirement plan of the future is every 7 years. Instead of waiting till you're 65 and, maybe squeezing out 20 years, take 10 of those years during your working years while you're young, healthy. Maybe you're traveling with your kids. It's called a Sagmeister. I love that concept.
I'm going to take one soon.
You live in a permanent. You are a Sagmeister. Like, your entire day in life is a Sagmeister.
And I live in Sacktown.
You showed up today. You were here for 15 minutes, and you look out on the porch. He's doing exercise.
I didn't do it today.
Then he took off. 2 hours later, he's at home sleeping.
Blurring days.
Gotta take a nap.
Oh boy!
You tired yourself out exercising during your job.
We were talking about Steve and I about doing the Google thing, just having a day, or we.
Oh, be careful the G word while we're on the air because they're
devices.
Our home nest. We got that tool now. The GOOGLE.
Can't talk about 'em.
Is it? Oh, 2 O's, 1 GL. Yeah, if you say the word, it's.
I tried to mute it, so I don't know if it worked.
It's not a big deal. Might be. Hey Google.
There it is. He's listening now.
It's blue.
Closing the loop on purpose. Talked about the one sentence for your life.
The one sentence for my life.
Yeah, what? I love this, but he didn't give enough examples. I would have loved like people's. I know Lincoln preserved the Union and freed the slaves. That's his one sentence contribution. So you say, "Oh, Abe Lincoln preserved the Union and freed the slaves."
Hey Google. Stop.
We're tortured by this new thing, but Lincoln, preserved the Union and freed the slaves. That was his one-line contribution to to his work as president. And he talks about it like a parent. Like, you don't have to be president to have a substantial one line. He talked about a guy that raised 4 kids to be productive members of society and happy. Like, that's a great one liner if you're ever known for. Or she helped 3 generations of people learn how to read.
So what's your one liner, Terry?
I haven't thought about it until now, but I'd like to be being someone who's looked back on their life, and I'd like to be known for helping people accomplish something more beyond what they thought was possible, based upon things that we've taught them. So if we help people connect to these books and become more incremental in their development, meaning they can get better over time, a little bit at a time, and we help 1,000 people, 10,000, 100,000 people do that, I'd be okay with that.
It's a pretty amazing thing. Yeah. I would too.
I mean, I'd have to work on it a little bit more, but that'd be kind of cool.
Right around the corner.
I mean, I just saw this, in the book. I finished it earlier today. I like to finish the book kind of close to the end of the podcast. Although I've read this before.
I mean, when you're doing a book a week, sometimes you don't have a choice.
especially if you haven't done anything yet.
Yeah, today I didn't finish till noon today.
Yeah.
So I came right up against the wall.
I would basically take 20% of our time, because we don't get paid to do this right yet. Like, we take a day off and learn the book, curate the book, shoot the podcast. It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
It's our 20% time.
I love it.
Yeah.
I like talking about it.
And the videos are forever, man. Man, we did Viktor Frankl's book last week. Just love that book. Yeah, if you haven't seen the interview yet, look at it with his grandson. It's fantastic.
His grandson, just as sharp as he. I mean, he's a sharp guy. A lot of good stuff.
Totally.
You want to tell them what we got for next week?
Next week we have Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. Nobel Prize. He's actually mentioned in this book for prospect theory.
Oh, is that when he's going through all the 15 books at the end?
No, I think he mentioned it because the point being is people hate losses way more than they like gains, and he talks about the prospect theory, meaning people will keep doing a job that they hate just because they don't want to have no job. And that's like irrational. People are irrational. But this is a book by Nobel Prize winning economist. He won the Nobel Prize in economy, but he's a psychologist.
Okay. Have either of you guys read it?
I have not. I'm looking forward to it, though.
Nope.
That's awesome.
Looking forward to it.
Cool. Well, this is exciting. And so we have, again, the interview with Daniel Pink Wednesday, will probably be released Thursday. And then we actually have our live workshop Thursday night. So a lot going on this week.
Yeah, cool. Make sure you like us and give us a review, share us, promote us. Things are going great. And the better we do, the more we can help you.
All right. Talk to you guys soon.
Take care.